World Championship Wrestling always had an impeccable reputation when it came to discovering talent. But on the other hand, it also had a knack for letting stars slip through its fingers. Many wrestlers with bright futures passed through WCW without the promotion fully capitalizing on their potential. Some of these names may have seemed ordinary at the time, with little relevance, but time proved that fate had something bigger in store for them elsewhere. Believe it or not, some of the biggest names in wrestling were considered failures by WCW before becoming legends in other promotions. In this video, we'll explore the stories of 10 wrestlers who, despite being overlooked or underestimated early on, went on to achieve great success in the wrestling world. But first, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of the amazing videos we'll be releasing. Number 10. Terra Rising. When you think about Hunter Hearst Helmsley or Triple H, you might find the name a bit silly, right? Triple H sounds like the name of some cream you'd buy to treat sunburns, doesn't it? Well, you know what sounds even dumber than Hunter Hearst Helmsley? Terra Rising. That was the name Paul Levesque used during his early days in WCW, where he wrestled against and defeated names like Keith Cole, Sonny Rogers, and T.A. McCoy. Back then, the future Cerebral Assassin was still finding his way. He was basically a good head of hair and a tight outfit, light years away from becoming the character we all know. His opportunities increased when he became Jean-Paul Levesque and started speaking with a French accent, trying to fit into a more refined persona.
I want to tell everybody in WCW why I was called Terra Rising. I was brought here as a boy from France to be educated in the best schools in the United States.
However, this gimmick, while giving him a bit more visibility, still screamed permanent mid-card wrestler. A potential partnership with Lord Steve Regal as the Blue Bloods had potential, but in the end, it was Regal who convinced Levesque that he needed to leave WCW and head to WWE if he wanted to gain the experience necessary to truly hone his craft. Ultimately, he did well for himself. Number 9. Mako Satomura. In the 90s, Eric Bischoff wasn't just using international talent to strengthen WCW's cruiserweight division, he also looked beyond the United States for female wrestlers to create a strong women's division. Among the notable additions were Medusa and Luna Vachon, but one of the most impressive was the young Mako Satomura, a star from Japan, who established her career in promotions like All Japan Women's Pro Wrestling and other Japanese circuits. Mako made her debut in the US and later became a major figure in wrestling promotions outside of WCW, including WWE and NXT UK. Mako became one of the greatest female wrestlers of all time, earning the title of a living legend in women's wrestling. After her time in Japan and her appearances in WWE's NXT UK, Mako established herself as a major influence in the wrestling world, leaving a lasting legacy for future generations of wrestlers. Number 8. Brian Armstrong. Before achieving success in WWE as Road Dogg, Brian Armstrong was already trying to make his way into the world of sports entertainment. His journey began in smaller promotions, where he trained under his father, Bob Armstrong, and gained experience. The Armstrong family had a solid reputation in wrestling, and Brian, although not given a push by WCW, worked hard to make a name for himself. In the early 1990s, he made appearances in WCW, but his career didn't take off in the company, and he eventually moved on. In the following years, Brian had several sporadic appearances on WCW shows like Saturday Night, Worldwide, Main Event, Power Hour, and Pro, where he was frequently on the losing end. He soon realized that his career in WCW wasn't going anywhere fast and decided to take the next step. In 1994, he signed with WWE, where he immediately gained success as part of the new Age Outlaws alongside Billy Gunn. After being released from WWE, Brian never attempted a return to WCW, and there is no record of him appearing at WCW's final Nitro event. Instead, he continued his wrestling career and cemented his legacy in WWE. Number 7. Bruiser Mastino. Glenn Jacobs, the man who would become world famous as Kane, had a rough start to his career, facing several failed gimmicks in WWE. Among them, the most notable were Isaac Yankem DDS and Fake Diesel, which would have certainly ruined the career of any less talented wrestler. But before he became a global star with the character that made him a legend, Jacobs had a brief stint in WCW where his story could have taken a completely different turn. In a single appearance on WCW Saturday Night, several years before becoming the crazy dentist Isaac Yankem, Jacob stepped into the ring as Bruiser Mastino. The name, which had previously been used by the wrestler Mike Halleck, aka Mantor, seemed more like an attempt to fit Glenn into an eccentric persona than anything truly intimidating. Imagine a wrestler with a shiny gold vest, curly blonde hair, and a Hollywood smile whiter than his opponent's pants, ready to face the great Sting. Clearly, Bruiser Mastino wasn't ready to shine at that level. He was in desperate need of much more training before becoming the true standout he would eventually become. Fortunately, he didn't give up. This rocky start was just a chapter in the path that would lead him to become the big red machine, Kane, in WWE. Number 6. Damon Striker. Adam Copeland, better known as the legendary Edge, had always had a deep passion for wrestling and dreamed of signing with WWE one day. However, before achieving superstardom in the world's largest wrestling organization, he had a rather peculiar experience with another industry giant, WCW. In his early days, still a young Canadian chasing his big break, Copeland made a brief appearance in WCW. He did not portray a character named Damon Striker or play the role of a bump dummy, but rather had a short stint in the company before making his big move to WWE. His main focus was always WWE, and he became a star there, as he had always dreamed of. Edge also shared his feelings about the WCW locker room in the 90s. He sensed a strange tension in the air, a bad vibe that suggested chaos and mismanagement were ruling the roost, with many people trying to steer things in the wrong direction. Despite all that, this experience only strengthened his resolve to achieve his ultimate dream, to make it to Vince McMahon's WWE. Number 5. Robbie V. Picture the Rob Van Dam we all know today, the master of the 5-star frog splash, the stylish beard, the unique wrestling gear, and the iconic thumbs gesture. But before he became the legend we all recognize, he was Robbie V.
Okay.
Back in the 90s, Rob Van Dam, still finding his true style, tried his luck in WCW. Recruited by then figurehead Cowboy Bill Watts, Robbie V was ready for a modest rise, and he started off strong. He won his TV matches with ease, defeating opponents like Scotty Flamingo, Pat Rose, and Shanghai Pierce. Of course, it wasn't anything that would have made him the next Ricky Steamboat or anything, but he had some potential. Things seemed to be going well for the young talent, but Robbie V's fate took a turn after a tour with All Japan. When Van Dam returned to WCW, Watts had been replaced by Ollie Anderson, who was not as enthusiastic about the Robbie V character. With little hope in WCW and a far more attractive offer on the other side of the world, Rob Van Dam made the decision that would push him towards stardom. He knew he could make much more money, around $2,000 a week, in All Japan, a significant upgrade from his previous earnings. So he set off for Japan, where his career began to flourish. Van Dam would return a few years later to ECW, where he would finally establish himself as one of wrestling's greatest icons, and soon his presence in the industry would be undeniable. When WCW, now under Eric Bischoff's leadership, realized their mistake in letting Van Dam slip away, they desperately tried to bring him back. But by then, his journey to Japan and ECW had already shaped Rob Van Dam into one of the biggest names in modern wrestling. Number 4. Dave Heath. Before becoming one of the most iconic figures of the Attitude Era as the Vampire Gangrel, Dave Heath had a long journey trying to get noticed in the wrestling world. Over the years, he ventured through several promotions, from Stu Hart's Stampede Wrestling to All Japan and even ECW, always seeking a shot at the big leagues in the US. However, the road to success wasn't easy, and Heath spent the 80s working as enhancement talent in both WWE and WCW, often helping rising stars get their chance to shine. His WCW journey began in 1989, where he appeared in a few random tag team matches alongside various partners, hoping to gain some visibility. But it wasn't until 1993 that Heath had a bigger opportunity as a member of the Black Hearts, a villainous faction that caught some attention. However, what seemed like a golden opportunity quickly turned into a disappointment. Heath was offered a full-time contract, but he turned it down after WCW's famous power plant trainers called him fat. And who would have thought? Vampires have feelings too, right? Despite trying to return to WCW later on, the promotion showed no interest, and he was relegated to losing roles in lesser shows like Pro and Worldwide, always playing the part of the underdog with little recognition. Heath's time in WCW continued frustratingly for nearly a decade, but he didn't give up. After a year of putting over names like Rey Mysterio, Chris Jericho, Dean Malenko, and the Public Enemy, fate finally smiled on him. Gangrel, his vampiric alter ego, emerged on WWE TV, turning Dave Heath into one of the most distinctive and memorable characters of the 90s wrestling era. Number 3, Terry Richards. Before becoming one of ECW's biggest stars, Rhino, the fierce man-beast, had a long and tough road. When he first started his journey, no one could have imagined he would rise to become the final ECW champion before Paul Heyman's promotion came to an end. With his imposing presence and in-ring abilities, Rhino quickly became a force to be reckoned with in Philadelphia, dominating his way through the roster and leaving a trail of destruction. However, this meteoric rise didn't happen overnight. Years before, Rhino, still known as Terry Richards, was just another hopeful trying to catch the attention of WWE or WCW, striving to make a name for himself in the world of wrestling. Terry Richards wrestled several televised matches for both organizations, but with little to no fanfare, facing off against icons like Road Warrior Hawk, Jim Duggan, The Nasty Boys, and Renegade. His simple, unremarkable name didn't reflect the potential he would later show. However, a backstage moment at the Great American Bash in 1995 left an indelible mark on Rhino's mind. There he was, wide-eyed and a mixture of surprised and disgusted, watching his childhood hero, Hulk Hogan, drinking not one, but several ice-cold beers. This moment, seemingly trivial, was a turning point for Rhino. And if you think that seeing Hulk Hogan drink was the worst thing he ever did, I got some news for you. It's just the tip of the iceberg, and what comes next is bound to shock you. Number 2, Kip Montana. Billy Gunn, one of WWE's biggest names, seemingly appeared out of nowhere during the New Generation era, when he debuted in the tag team Smoking Guns, alongside his brother Bart. Although Gunn became a household name, many may not know that he wasn't a seasoned veteran or a major figure in independent promotions. In fact, he already had some ring experience, including a brief stint in WCW, where he spent some time out of the spotlight. Before becoming a wrestling star, Kip Sop, Gunn's real name, was touring as a professional cowboy. However, deep down, he knew the rodeos wouldn't be enough for what he truly wanted. What could be worse on my body than this? He thought. So, he decided to swap the rodeo arena for a wrestling ring. His rodeo cowboy name was, of course, a cliche, Kip Montana. He made his debut in WCW in 1989, facing big names like Sting and the Road Warriors on the WCW Pro Show. If you were watching at the time, you probably wouldn't have guessed that Kip Montana and Sting would still be active on TBS over 30 years later. Gunn was still early in his wrestling journey and didn't do anything to stand out immediately, but his imposing physique and athleticism grabbed attention, eventually opening the door to WWE a few years later. Number 1, Mr. JL. Jerry Lynn, already with 7.5 years of experience in professional wrestling, signed with WCW in the fall of 1995, marking a pivotal moment in his career. At that point, Lynn was already something of a sensation in the indie promotions, having delivered major matches, especially against the talented Shawn Lightning Kid Waltman. He had also toured internationally in Japan and Mexico, gaining respect and recognition for his technical prowess. Despite his established reputation as a skilled wrestler, WCW signed him to join the Cruiserweight division, a division full of talented wrestlers and often at the forefront of the company's attention. However, instead of being utilized as Jerry Lynn, he was repackaged as Mr. JL, a masked character dressed in an outfit that looked like it came straight out of an episode of the Power Rangers, an idea that never truly resonated with the fans. During his time in WCW, Lynn faced a variety of opponents on Nitro, Saturday Night, Pro, and Worldwide, but he often lost, failing to make a lasting impression, especially due to injuries that hindered his performance. His struggles in WCW ultimately led to his release in the summer of 1997, while still recovering from an injury.
However, Lynn didn't give up on his career, and after a few attempts in WWE, he found his true home in ECW.
It was in ECW that Jerry Lynn solidified his legacy, delivering some of the promotion's most memorable matches and eventually capturing the World Championship. Through ECW, he became a legend, widely recognized for his in-ring skills and the intensity he brought to every performance. Do you think we forgot anyone? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and share it with your friends. See you in the next one.